everyone. Hope you're enjoying your afternoon and you saw the results of the match, I hope. I have a fantastic panel in front of me today, but before I introduce them, Declan already introduced me. I lead the human capital practice in Deloitte. I'm also lead the Deloitte side of the strategic alliance we have with Insurance Ireland, where we look at talent and culture across the insurance industry. So today's topic is really interesting for me, definitely very close to my heart. I was delighted to hear that I was invited back again after last year. I must have done a good job last year. But we do have a fantastic panel of experts in the field, and they're all going to talk today around what they do in their own organisations, around fostering cultures to create innovation, to attract and develop talent. So I think we have an interesting afternoon ahead of us. So I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves, tell us what organisation they're from, and also a little bit about why this topic is of interest to them. And I'll go gentleman first, as Jonathan is right beside me.
Oh, that's very kind. I'm Jonathan Clark. I'm Global Head of Business Solutions Claims, it says there. And actually, I think I'm the past president of the Chartered Insurance Institute, because we've luckily had our AGM. But as past president, I'm here because throughout my career, I've had a lot of opportunity from people helping me develop what limited talent I had, and I believe fervently that we have to continue to develop that talent to make this a really great place to work.
Mary?
Mary Ryan, Managing Director for Crédit Agricole Creditor Insurance. I'm very happy to be here today. I have a fascinating experience on a daily basis. We're an Irish organisation with very strong French roots. We have 115 people, 22 nationalities, and our challenge as leaders at CACI is really to bring all those 22 nationalities together in a shared culture and a shared vision. So I look forward to sharing that with you today.
We'll definitely talk a little bit about that. Claire?
I'm Claire Cusack. Up until 2 weeks ago, I was HR Director with Allianz Care in Dublin. So I'm there nearly 20 years, 20 years next January. I joined the business as a startup. I'm number 15. We're now 1,400 people based in 27 countries with, so it's been a really exciting journey. I'm part of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee with Insurance Ireland. So diversity and inclusion is a really passionate topic of mine. And I think so thank you for having me here today.
And if anyone is looking for a fantastic CHRO, just chat to Claire later. Dorothée?
So my name is Dorothée Burkel. I am responsible for everything tied to people, system, places, culture, communication, and compliance at PartnerRe, which is a global reinsurer. It's my third personal and professional transformation. So I started in advertising, worked there for 10 years, then moved to new technology, worked there for 15 years, was recently at Google and joined PartnerRe 2 years ago, and I'm still in my learning curve of insurance, and also found out that before 10 to 15 years I could not really say I fully belong and I've been here long enough. So I think transformation is really part of my personal career and what really motivates me in life. So I'm going to talk to you a little more about that, so how I transform myself and try to get people along on their own transformation too.
Great, thanks very much. And just to remind you, if you have any questions, just feel free to send them through on Slido. We heard a little bit this morning around culture in AXA, and one of the things we're seeing a huge amount, both in thought leadership and generally from organisations, is how do you use purpose and culture to really drive your competitive advantage. I know there's been a lot of work in Allianz Worldwide Care around purpose. So can you tell a little bit what you've done and how do you actually make purpose a real thing in an organisation?
Okay, so as background, I think we had been a sort of a double-digit growth company in terms of headcount, and the company grew very, very fast. We then went through a merger, and we became, moved from being an Irish regulated company to a French regulated company, and with that came extra layers of governance and also became quite a strong matrix, and I think that's quite common now with all international companies. They have a very strong matrix environment, which can be very complex for staff. So I felt that we'd got to the point where compensation and benefits is okay. Obviously, it can always be more, but it better, very strong on the health and well-being, career development space, but actually the piece around the purpose. And following the merger, I think staff had lost a little bit of the idea of really why we're here and what we're about. And it's really learning for me was that you can't take for granted that actually people really fully understand and buy into the purpose. So what we did was we went from bottom up and we ran a number of World Cafes and got some insights from the staff from all grades, all levels, to say, actually, what do you think we're about? Why do you think we're here? What do you think is our unique selling point as a business? And do you really understand the strategy? And do you feel that you yourself within your role is playing a part in the strategy? So it was really very valuable to see that there was a kind of a disconnect in the staff in terms of what the corporate strategy piece is and how the staff on their day-to-day. So whilst obviously they liked their jobs, they're still there, all of those pieces were working, but to actually be really bought into the whole entire purpose. So from the feedback from the World Cafe, we put and built a strategy house. So it's quite simple. So we had the pillars of our strategy. We had really defined very clearly, who we are, what do we want to become, and what are our unique selling points. And overriding that then, we're saying actually the people attributes of the Allianz group were to be the overriding behaviours that we wanted the staff to feel that those behaviours will drive us delivering the strategy. And within the strategy, we also had a people pillar within the strategy as well. So whilst we had the strategy house, we then created a toolkit and basically trained all the people who'd been through the World Cafes. So we brought them back in, got lots of feedback from them, and then created a toolkit as a training tool to say this is actually how we will locally, everybody in the business will get a granular version of what the strategy is about, but in terms of the context of their own departments and their own teams. Where do you see my job fitting in with how we're going to achieve the strategy? Regardless of what role you have in the business, everybody can contribute to the strategy. So we did that, and then we also then very clearly put within the performance planning for 2019 that everybody's objectives had to be linked to the strategy, so that the strategy would just flow off people. We all understood exactly what we're doing, and everybody felt that they were part of achieving the success of the business. So great, very positive feedback, and I think it was very successful. It was a very successful initiative.
And very practical. They're all things that every organisation can do.
Yes. Yeah.
Just following up on the purpose thing, when Jonathan and I first spoke a lot about purpose, but also not all organisations really think about purpose, but you think about it an awful lot.
Thank you for that. Yes. I mean, I suppose, been in the industry a wee while, and the thing that strikes me is we've definitely got a very big challenge in both attracting and retaining the right talent. Human capital is, dare I say, a lot more scarce than financial capital. We're competing globally for talent. So what I've discovered, and perhaps probably always knew, is that millennials are not desperately interested in investing their brilliance, their talent, and their time in the causes that we might think matter. So we've got to find ways that we can reconnect to them with a little bit more relevance. And let me just try and give you a couple of examples of what I mean by relevance, and then talk a little bit about purpose. Within SCOR, we offer agricultural microinsurance, and that's risk protection for poor, small-scale farmers operating in difficult parts of the world, made easy for them to obtain and very easy for them to claim if there's a problem. And I think that's perhaps a point that's very important. In Asia Pacific, we're offering life insurance products for cancer patients. So two very well thought through things that I think are attractive. Within the Chartered Insurance Institute, we've developed a campaign around insuring women's futures, understanding 6 key points in a lifetime and saying, well, how can we actually serve them? So what's my point? My take is, if we want to compete for talent, we have to revitalise being very clear as to the purpose of what we actually do in the insurance profession. And for many years, insurance has supported human endeavour. But I wonder now if we are selling, or are we truly looking for and meeting customers and societal needs? And I think we have to if we want to attract talent. And can we really say we put people in a better place by the products we sell and the claims services that we offer? Now, at this point, could I just do a little bit of work for you? So I'm just going to ask you to do something perhaps you might not normally like to do at events like this. So could you just close your eyes and for 15 seconds I'd just like you to think of when you last truly felt pleased or proud of something you'd done in your day's work. So I'll give you 15 seconds. I've got a clock, I can see it. So open your eyes and just think, what was it? In whose service was it that you did that? And what was your purpose? And I think we've got to get those messages out there. It's all very fine to talk about being in a global organisation, as I might, but actually it all comes down to you, what you want to do. And I think we've got great opportunities if we go back to the purpose of insurance. I think we need to do it. And one of the neat things about it is if we start to innovate to truly pick up societal needs, I think we might actually start to reverse innovate for ourselves. And we might start to move, as we heard from Thomas this morning, from providing protection in case things go wrong to actually providing certainty that they'd go right, and from covering risk to preventing risk. And I think if we do that, we'll start to resonate with the millennials and we'll start to resonate with why they might want to come and join us. That's my thought.
We did something similar, Valerie, to Claire's exercise strategy house, and for us we put a lot of work into the purpose. And we look at the outcome of what everybody's job has within the organisation and what the purpose of that job is. And as in the type of insurance that we provide, creditor insurance, we intervene in people's lives in some moments of huge upset or catastrophic upset in certain cases. So we look at our jobs, our roles, not as processing a claim or reporting on financials, but we look at each role and the part it plays in providing a level of comfort in life's fragile moments. And we feel that when we speak about our purpose with our people, when we discuss our purpose with our people, everybody along the chain, the value chain, can see the role that they play in serving our customers. And right from the board, senior management, right through the organisation, we're really convinced when people have a sense of purpose, they operate at their best, and that's ideal for them and ideal for all of us, I think.
And it's interesting, it's not something new. You know, there's always that John JFK story when he went to the Space Centre, you know, asked somebody who was cleaning, you know, what are you doing? And he said, I'm sending a shuttle to the moon. You know, it's always been about purpose and how do you really grab onto that. Dorothée, you mentioned when you introduced yourself around been through an awful lot of transformation, and one of the things when we spoke, you talked about, and you mentioned it as well, Jonathan, around innovation and how do you create new products and get people to be just open to new ideas and new ways of doing things. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, and I think it is, so I fully concur on everything tied to purpose and what the meaning of what people are doing individually at work. I think there is something else that I found really interesting when I joined was to work on this notion of what am I capable of. And I think that was probably the most, where I could see the most differences between the world I was coming from to this new world, which was this notion of being very deep and not necessarily as confident in the ability to do things differently and to get in a space where you don't know anything. And so this, and is really what we try to infuse in people now. It's actually, you don't even know what you're capable of until you've tried it. So let's do not be intimidated by change, by technology. So technology is really not, it can be a threat, but it's not the enemy there. So technology can be your ally as soon as you start to really understand what's behind it. And what I think was one of the most important things for me was, you know, behind all these changes that we've seen in the tech world, the tool is only the visible side of it, but it's all the cultures that goes behind the tool that actually developed a completely different philosophy. And we see that with most of the millennials that are getting on the workplace right now. So the tool has changed, and the web in particular has changed massively the way we access information, the way we connect together, the way we relate to authorities, the way we relate to knowledge. And all of this, of course, has a massive influence on the way we work. So how do we adapt our environment to those new way of working, and how we take the best out of it, which is okay, how we remove the silos, how we remove boundaries, how we reduce bureaucracy. And we found out that actually we could have a very physical experience of all of this through physical changes in our offices that would be actually following the change of the virtual office. So what we did over the last 2 years is that we've changed and we've moved offices in every single location. So we are now at the 8th physical move in 2 years. We still have a couple more to come. And when we did that, we actually said, okay, and that's very physical, so no technology is involved, but like very remotely. We say, okay, we're going to transform our physical space. So we want to remove the barrier, so there is no more closed desk. It's open plan, and it's open plan for every single person, CEO included, executive committee included, but we want to do it at high quality. So with various really up-to-date, the best possible equipment, individual equipment. And the other thing that we did is that actually if you move into a new space, you need to feel you belong in that new space. So we've created in every single office teams that were in charge of the choosing the location, then defining the layout of the office, finally choosing the design and everything. So every single of our office has an element of branding, but they own actually completely designed and owned by the local people. And when we did that, and of course we enabled all the office with a better communication tool, better ability to work completely remotely. And we, of course, tied that back to who we are. We're a global reinsurer. We are completely functional. We don't at all operate country by country. We need to have constant interaction. We need to have free access to information. We need to have shared document. And all of this, all of a sudden made a lot of sense because that was completely consistent. So that's really, and making things very tangible and not only tool-based and not only virtual did actually help, and you had immediate impact on how people were actually working. So that's been, and I wouldn't say we're done. We're just in the middle of the journey, but really making sure that there was some visible element to some notion that are very intellectual. So, okay, breaking silos, what does that even mean? Well, okay, no more walls. Okay, then it starts to be, but does that mean that we are talking? Well, okay, you need more tools, we need more occasion, and by the way, you decide. It's not a facility team or CEO who decide that actually he wants to have, or he or she wants to have blue walls and red carpets. So what do you want? What would you like to have? And everybody just really contributing to every single decision that affects them. So it's a very concrete, basic example, but actually went a long way. So sometimes we are looking for very sophisticated things, simple things that can actually make a big difference.
Yeah. It's great. One of the words that struck me as you were speaking there was around that belonging, and as you speak, giving ownership to individuals for how their career progresses and how they want to work and show up. And I think for the millennium population, we hear about it an awful lot. They want to own it, but they also need support around how they get there. In CACI, Mary, what are you doing along that? Because you've quite a young population.
Over 40% are Gen Y in the organisation. I think we're about 30% Gen X, and then we have a couple either side of that, let's say. So I suppose in terms of, engaging the newer generations coming into the workplace, or all generations, in fact, we believe our starting point is that everybody has something to contribute. And our role as leaders here is to create a safe environment in which people can feel comfortable to contribute. So we use a lot of innovative communication methods, World Cafes mentioned by Claire. We use gallery walk style for particularly business communications, strategy communications, building company roadmaps, department roadmaps, etc. And the gallery walk style we find works quite well for us because people are in smaller groups. They're able to engage more easily with the presenter. they feel more, and they are more involved in the topic. So each topic is a discussion, and they can identify the part that they play, let's say, in the strategy and some of the projects they're doing and how that relates to the overall strategy. So it is about creating that safe environment whereby people can contribute at their best. Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks, Mary. Just to remind you, if you have questions, send them through. I'm not seeing any popping up yet, so not to put any pressure on you guys, of course. Jonathan, we spoke again around kind of the future work, and it follows on from Mary's discussion there, and indeed what Dorothée was saying. But the future work, and there's a lot of research around the half-life of a skill, and a skill lasts 2.5 years, etc., which really puts an onus on organisations to be able to support people in developing new skills and, you know, nearly pushing that change agenda on people. What have you seen, be it in SCOR and broader with some of the other work you've done?
I was fascinated when you said about the half-life of a skill, because obviously I think we discussed probably the first thing I had to do was learn to type. So even I've had to do a little bit of retooling. I think it's fascinating. As you go around the world, you definitely see that people are investing in their skills. That's the main investment. And it was interesting hearing from Peter earlier. It reminded us that in the West we tend to invest in houses. So there's quite a competition going on. So within the Chartered Insurance Institute, I think it's probably fair to say one of the things that we've done is started to develop smaller communities, societies, starting to get much more connected to individuals so that we can help them develop themselves and chart their own journeys. Within SCOR, I think we've had to build over the last few years, and it's very much, as I was reminded, a work in progress. But I think the challenge is to work out what the future skills are going to be. Mm-hmm. The second challenge is to persuade management that it's worth investing in those future skills today, and I'll come back to that point. And we do have to build some of those skills in today's training. And then we need to reinforce in the minds of everybody, including ourselves, actually, that we need to keep those skills up to date and be prepared to reinvent them. And I think we have things like CPD, we have things like that, but that's not enough. I think we've got to do more. So SCOR, we scan the market, we have a university, we think globally, we do a lot of skills audits, a lot of work around trying to understand what the future might look like with our innovations teams. We're working on learning paths. As it happens, I'm working on the claims learning path at the moment, just trying to sort of say, what does that look like? And it's quite difficult because I realise I came 3 years ago in a sort of a ladder, and it's a scrambling net. So how do you think about that yourself? So you have to work with your own teams. I think one of the things that we've done above all else is start to get a good graduate recruitment, good graduate placement program. And some of the skills that you see people bring to us remind us that we probably ought to reinvest ourselves. Yeah. So I think that's good. One sort of cautionary note that I find quite fascinating, and I was just looking at it because the Chartered Insurance Institute are lobbying about this at the moment, is that in the United Kingdom, 20% of your training in an apprentice scheme can be off-the-job training, but you can't use that 20% to prepare for future roles. So one of the things that we're doing within the CII is lobbying to say, well, surely it's time to rethink that. And I think that ability to think ahead and reskill today is going to be very critical. Yeah,
and very challenging. I think organisations are struggling generally to go in 5 years, what are the skills and capabilities we will need, because there's so much technology disruption, there's so much other disruption in the world. I suppose following along from that, Allianz Worldwide Health kind of started up, how many years ago?
In 2000, so 19, nearly 20.
So it's went through a massive transition into the organisation it is today. I'm sure some of the suggestions from Jonathan resonated because you would have had to build people with their capabilities.
Yes, we did, because we didn't have a source in Ireland actually for the talent that we needed for international health. So we grew our own. But I mean, in terms of how we're working, it's really dramatically changed. That we now have, we have a portion of our claims officers will actually process their claims from home, so they can actually work from home. And whilst we talk about flexible working from home, like our competitors in the market are the tech companies. So Allianz Care, we have 70 nationalities. It's a multilingual environment. We need to be hiring in the languages. But the competitors are the tech companies, not other insurance companies. And I think that's what we need to be very mindful in insurance, is that actually that is what's actually has happened. So, we talk about flexible working, but, and we also talk about diversity and inclusion. And we can't pay lip service, I believe, to those topics. So if we're talking about being an LGBT-friendly workplace, or we're very good for, mothers returning to work, etc., you actually have to walk the talk. You can't just say we are and put a label, because, the tech companies are very strong in this space. They have larger budgets, particularly, for these type of topics than actually insurance companies would have. So we need to be clever in terms of what we do. And we need to be listening to the staff. And that's why, the World Cafe is a very simple model, but actually you get excellent feedback from staff, and we use it for quite a lot of topics. But, just even on, say, a topic on working from home, what really works for you. And more you see people arriving at interview saying, actually, I only want to work 4 days in the office. I really want to work 1 day at home. Now, 10 years ago, nobody would come into an interview and say that, and they certainly wouldn't get a second interview. So, but whereas now you're going, well, actually, we have to take this seriously. This is a talent we want. And yeah, okay, it might necessarily suit, but actually we need to be listening, and we need to be able to be working, because we know for a fact if they go for a job, a compliance job in Facebook or Google, they will get these opportunities. So, if that's what we want, and we want to get the top talent, we need to be seen to be, and we need to act and walk the talk on being a flexible, open working environment. Yeah.
Right. So we're getting plenty of questions in. So I'm going to come back to one that relates to just what you've said from one of my colleagues, actually. But the first one I wanted to ask, and I'm going to put it to Dorothée, because I think it's interesting in light of your transformation within PartnerRe. So loyalty, or a loyal workforce, or change in new talent, what matters the most in a company?
It's an interesting one, to be honest. I think, so what I used to tell to people is, you need to come for the good reason. And it's okay to leave for the good reason too. So, for ages we've been building company around this notion of loyalty, but without really having it at a really balanced level. So my sense is that as soon, just as long as you learn, you're in a good place. And so that's really what I'm telling people. The day you feel that you're not learning, then we're not doing the right thing with you. Now, I don't think any company can really offer to anybody just any certainty on what's the next job is going to be, what they're going to do in 5 years, where they're going to be, what's going to be interesting, if they are in the line of business that will still be very relevant in, and I would say even like a horizon 10 to be 3 years. The one thing that we can do for them is really making sure that every single day they go, they come, they do something that matters to them, that matters to the company, and where they learn and they're getting skills that are marketable. That's our primary responsibility. And I think that's definitely what the tech company, by nature and by design, it doesn't mean that they were. So I think, just we tend to think that tech companies are better at so many things. It's not true. But because of the industry they are in, they are more, of course, they're completely in the trend, and they are developing skills that everybody wants. But they're not necessarily always more intentional. Being intentional about what we're doing is something that actually belongs to all of us individually. How do I make sure that people I have will really get better and be better at the end of the year than what they have been today? It's back to the point around capability. If people are convinced that they're capable of doing many things and something else than what they are doing today, then there is no limit to what they can do. That's really some internal limitation, and that we need to fight against, I think. Yeah. For me, that's the key. And then you deserve loyalty. If not, too bad for you, too bad for us.
It's a really interesting thing, and a lot of employees of all generations are quite scared of that, because you often hear that I'm fatigued with change. It's constantly new things, and it's creating the positive employee experience for them, and a positive, trusting environment that they enjoy working in and feel we can take a risk, we can learn new things, and it's safe. The question from my colleague, thank you very much, which I think is an interesting one, and actually I hear it quite a lot, is how do you handle isolation risks with remote workers, and how do you create a culture that they're aligned to? So I think organisations have struggled on this for a while, actually.
I think the blended working from home is probably more effective than fully working from home, unless that's what the person wants. So blended working from home would be maybe they work 3 days a week from home, 2 days in the office, and that they must come in and, for team meetings and that sort of thing. So they come in for their one-to-ones, and instead of doing that remotely. I think that keeps them connected, and also I think it's a very strong retention factor, and the stickiness piece is that they still have the interpersonal piece in the office, so they still have that, yet they really do like that piece of not having to commute. And it also broadens, and where we found was initially it started with people saying, I've moved to Kilkenny, or we're moving to Wexford because we simply can't afford to buy in Dublin, but I really want to stay working for the company. Well, you'd be crazy to say, okay, goodbye. So you're saying, absolutely, we want to keep you, can you do a number of days in the office? So it depends on the job, a number of days in the office and a number of days at home. So it's a really strong retention piece for them, because particularly for people who are moving further than even the commuter belt of Dublin, who want to live there but actually want to continue to work for you. I think it's important.
I think it's going to definitely become a more, particularly the culture aspect, because more and more people will be contractors and not actually your on-balance sheet employees. So organisations are going to have to put a lot more time into thinking about their culture and purpose.
I think that just picking that point up, I think it's absolutely spot on that you need to try and encourage people to come in. But I also think as a manager, it's really important you show them you're alive to them. And I've run a team since, 25 years, I think, that some of whom I don't see very regularly. One of the things I've learned is how important it is to them that you send them a little text, how are you, that you reply very quickly to thank them for things. And I wasn't sure whether it mattered till I read my 360 one day. And I think there's quite an interesting two-way thing there, that it's very important you show interest as a manager of a remote team in them, and that you are connecting with them as well. It's quite difficult to do it.
It is very hard to do.
And I know I don't get it right, so.
It's a lot of discipline, actually. So it's much more discipline to manage remotely than, because it can't be informal by definition. It has to be prepared, planned, in the diary, and get it done. And I think, but then it can also lead to better management. As there have been surveys and research on this, which actually good manager are as good remotely than on-site, provided they have this rigor around checking in one-on-one, making sure communication, and of course the communication tool have enabled all of this, because you can have just every single corporate message on your mobile for absolutely anything, and just interacting on a click and getting on a video conference with anybody. So this is tool enabled. I think it's also really important.
It really talks to how it's really important, the softer skills, and how do you develop those in people coming in from graduate level upwards, and this, getting rid of the title of the softer skills as well, all the emotional intelligence, the coaching, leadership, all of that. So I have a good lot of questions, and I'm conscious I have 1.5 minutes, so I'm going to pass one to Mary first, and then somebody was looking for more explanation of the World Cafe, so they might come to you during the break there, if that suits. But actually, one that was really interesting to me, how do we increase diversity in management teams when regulators are pushing harder and harder for directly relevant skills and expertise in PCF and INED roles? Certainly a conversation I've had with a huge number of financial services organisations.
How do we encourage diversity?
Yeah, and not just diversity of gender, it's diversity of thought, new experiences, new skills coming into it.
I suppose we've developed a lot in that regard over the years at CACI. When I joined back in 2006, I was the only female on the senior management team, and that was the case for the following 10 years. And I had a great team, and we performed very well, and the company grew fantastically over that period of time. But since I suppose I took over in the role as managing director, I would pay a particular attention to diversity, inclusion at all levels of the organisation. And our stats have improved quite dramatically since. Our senior management team now is 48% female, 52% male. all were 50-50 at, and I'm talking gender only, obviously, here, at mid-management level, we're 50-50. But I guess it's including everybody. As I said earlier on, everybody who comes to work has something valuable to give. Yes, involving everyone, giving everyone the opportunity to develop with the organisation, holding cultural workshops. We have a very strong culture and values team within CACI, and culture there means we recognise all the diversity and cultures within the organisation. We celebrate that, and promote culture across CACI.
I think it's the gender one is interesting, but there is certainly, I know, and particularly in the banking, I'm hearing a bit more and more in the insurance as well, because there's such restrictions around those PCP roles, etc. How are you going to get different personalities? How are you going to get someone from the food business into the financial services, because it's so heavily regulated? We need that diversity within it. Conscious, I think I'm over now, judging by that clock going upwards. Just a last thought from each of you, very quickly. You've about 10 seconds. What action would you recommend to the audience today as the one thing they could do to create a super employee experience? Dorothée, do you want to go first?
10 seconds.
10 seconds.
Use design thinking. It's a very simple process to create almost anything, any new concept, any new idea. You can bring in any kind of people and they can do amazing things. It takes 2 hours with a good methodology, and people would be surprised about what they're capable of. And that unlocks so many things. So, yeah.
Great. So design thinking. Claire?
I think around the purpose, I think it's really important that the staff your employees are bought into the purpose and understanding. I mean, insurance as a topic is at your time of need. So like for us, it's around contacting your health insurance company is very personal. So, and I heard a great saying last week actually at a diversity and inclusion seminar was around, they said diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being asked to dance. And I think it's a great thing. So again, not paying lip service to the fact that we are a diverse company, et cetera, et cetera. You need to really have the inclusion piece right as well as part of your strategy. Yeah.
Super. Okay. Mary?
People need to feel that they're working for an organisation that is really interested in their holistic personal and professional development. So it's an important piece for organisations to focus on.
Very good. And last but not least, Jonathan?
I think we just need to move from listening to hearing, and above all else, as individuals, prepare to be part of leading ever more diverse organisations.
Excellent. So thank you very much to my panel. I'm sure they deserve a round of applause.